I've been doing plenty of Unraid videos lately, and I've had a lot of people asking what plugins I have, so I thought today I would go ahead and do 15 must-have Unraid plugins. So we're going to go through these in no particular order. It's basically going to be alphabetical, but we'll go through them. I'll talk about what they do. I'll quickly show them as well, and I'll tell you about the ways that I'm personally using them and why I think that they're so great and that they're a must-have on Unraid. So our first one is going to be the Appdata Backup. This one just makes it really easy to back up and restore any app data from your Docker stuff. I use this one all the time, especially when I'm doing these videos. It allows me to back up the data so that if I'm going ahead and deleting and reinstalling some kind of Docker app. So I have it set really with the default settings where it's going to go ahead and it's going to keep at least 3 backups. It's going to delete backups that are older than 7 days. I really like the default settings. I think it does a great job, and this just really helps protect me in case there's any issues or in case I do something silly while trying to showcase something for my apps when I'm doing all these videos. Now, another Appdata plugin that I use is called Appdata Cleanup. Now, I haven't used this one purposefully for the last little bit to make sure that there is stuff that I can show you how it works. But what this does is it's going to go ahead and clean up a bunch of leftover app data from Docker containers or anything like that that maybe you've gotten rid of or that are no longer in use. So if we go ahead and we go to our settings for that, so clean up app data here, we can go ahead and see that there are a few that I have set up where I had originally installed the Docker and deleted it, or I had created a different version of something. And what I can do is I can go ahead and just select them, and it'll just go ahead and select all those ones, and I can go ahead and delete it. Now, there are lots of warnings on this application, on this plugin, to make sure that you're double checking all of the apps that you're getting rid of, all this data, because if it does accidentally grab the app data for something that is currently in use, then you're going to be a little bit SOL. It's going to delete all that data and you're not going to have it unless you have a backup from our previous plugin. We're just going to get rid of influx, rec, and telegraph here. I'm going to do delete selected. It's going to double check that we want to get rid of these. I'm going to press delete. There, go ahead, and they're deleted. So that's great. But see, for example, this one here, this one might actually be deleting my current Homar. I had installed 2 versions of Homar that were using the same app data folder. So this one might be currently in use. I would have to go ahead, double check that, and make sure it's not actually being in use before I get rid of it. Now, I have quite a few Docker applications now, and having something to auto-update them is great. I don't have time to go into my Unraid every other couple days and update all of my apps individually. So this one really helps simplify that process and update the process on an automatic schedule if I want. So let's go ahead and jump into that one. So we're going to go do auto update applications. And so this one is really nice because you can set it for plugins and you can set all the plugins individually, or you can do all of them. So that's something to keep in mind. You can set how many days it's going to wait before updating. So by default, it's 3, and that's a pretty good one. It's going to wait 3 days after an update is available before it goes ahead and updates the plugin, just in case there's any issues. 3 days gives a lot of the developers time to fix an issue if they had pushed one out and it caused a lot of problems. They usually get those done pretty quickly, and if it's longer than 3 days, that's a little problematic. So I have it set to do it at 3 a.m., and this is the way I have all of the plugins for the auto update. And then for Docker, I just have it set so that it's going to update all of my Docker applications on a daily basis. It's going to check at 3 a.m. and it's going to send me notifications on the updates so that I know which ones are getting updated and which ones aren't. So that one's really handy as well. This thing has really saved me a lot of time because sometimes, I would hop on and I would notice that I had a whole bunch of applications to update because I didn't check for maybe like a week and a half. And then all those updates take so much longer because there's so many updates in there. Whereas if you have it set to automatically do in the morning, you basically will never see your Docker applications update ever again, which is really nice. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about is called Custom Tab. And what Custom Tab does is it allows you to create additional custom tabs on your Unraid server. So up here, you can add as many tabs as you want to whatever you would like. So for example, I have one that's set for Home Assistant. So if I go ahead and click on this, it launches my Home Assistant webpage, which is on an entirely different server. Just makes it really easy where if I really want to quickly get to this, I can really quickly launch it. I don't have to go through a whole bunch of stuff. And the plugin is really cool and customizable. So if we go ahead and go into its settings here, we can go ahead and we can create additional tabs and we can set them up in a whole bunch of different ways. So you can set up a URL, built-in pages. So if you want to have a really quick access to a particular Docker app or something in there, you can set that up as well. You could do new tab, same tab, all this kind of stuff. It's very, very handy to have, and I really do like it. I use the Home Assistant one all the time. Now, next up is Dynamix's system stats. The system stats are a really nice way to just take a look at what your system's doing, what's being loaded, what's not being loaded. Unraid does have a pretty decent amount of these on the dashboard available to you already with the processor and all that kind of stuff. But what this will do is it actually puts it all in one place. So if we go into the settings here, we can see placement of the stats menu is currently in the header menu, which is right here. And the opening page will be disk stats. I like having it set to system stats because that's what I care about a little bit more. And then we can just have all of these kind of set to whatever we would like them to be. And now if I go ahead and launch that, we can see our processor load. It'll give us a much longer range of time. If we want to, we can set this up to be really nice. We can set this up to like, what's the last 2 hours has been like, and we can set it up like that. We could do quite a few different things, which is really nice. And I really do like the visual layout of these. And then we can also see the disk stats, so we can see what's being filled, what's not being filled, what's over allocation. And I'll go over something that I use to help manage this as well. So because I use a standard desktop style case, I do get concerned with my system temps, especially the drive temperatures. So I installed a plugin called Dynamix System Temp, which will help me show real-time temperatures within my system as long as the actual hardware allows it to be accessed. So if we go ahead and go to that, we can see that we have a core temp and we're able to see our processor temperature and our motherboard temperature. So that's great. And we can see that directly on my motherboard, on my homepage here. So I have my motherboard temperature that I can see, and then I have my processor temperature that I can see as well. These are just very nice and handy to have, and it allows me to just kind of keep an eye on these, especially when the processor is working hard. As of right now, it's not working very hard, but when it's installing a bunch of updates or there's a bunch of transcoding happening, that temperature will shoot up. And I just like keeping an eye on it, making sure everything's kind of in a reasonable amount or a reasonable temperature. And if something's not at a reasonable temperature, then maybe a fan is failing or something like that. I can go check the system. So very handy tool. So another plugin that is really handy and helps you fix a bunch of things that maybe you aren't aware, maybe aren't as efficient or aren't well set up is a plugin called Fix Common Problems. Very handy tool. I really do like it quite a bit. If we go ahead and jump into the settings for it, it's going to go ahead and immediately start scanning for common problems. It'll take a minute or so. We'll see how long it takes. And it'll go there, it'll tell me there are no errors that it's seeing right now. There are some warnings. It's saying that my Docker image file is currently full, so I should probably increase the available image size to the Docker, which is probably a good idea. And it will go ahead and tell me about any apps or plugins that need updating or anything else that needs to get done. And then I have a bunch of ignored warnings here because I have a pool cache that I'm kind of working around and kind of figuring out. So I have that set, and you can set it up to be run in the background constantly, or you can have it set so that it only runs when you launch it. I have it set so it only runs when I launch it, and I'll launch it every once in a while just to double check it, and that's all. Now, one of the plugins that actually prompted this was a plugin that I've talked about before, and it's been since updated, and it's called Folder View. Now it's called Folder View 2, and what this does is it allows my Docker apps to look like this, where they're all nested within particular folders. I have all these images set up. I really do like this plugin. It is hands down one of my favorites for organizational purposes. It makes things just really easy to manage and keep things kind of grouped up. And the new version is great. They updated it to allow for better combinations of Docker and VMs so that you don't have to always have them separate. You can put VMs and Docker stuff together in the same folder, which is kind of cool. And in terms of the settings here, all you really do in the settings is export and import your settings. all of this stuff kind of gets managed within the actual stuff here. So if I go into my media, these are all the settings for the folder. I'm able to choose the icon. I'm able to, change a lot of things about how it performs and how it acts. And then I can choose all the applications that I want in it. You can't have a Docker app in multiple folders. So anything that is not in a folder will be unchecked, and then you can add it into a folder if you want to. So if I want to move, for example, Recyclar to another folder, I would have to uncheck it from here, submit it, go into the other folder, and then check it in there. But I really do like the way that this one looks. It really does help with organization, and then I can update or see, I can update directly from here if I want to, all of the stuff that's in that folder. I can turn everything off from in that folder, turn everything on. Overall, very handy tool. So when we were on my dashboard, you may have noticed that I have my GPU and all of the information as to what it's doing available on my dashboard. And that's thanks to a plugin called GPU Statistics. This one is extremely handy when trying to manage transcoding, making sure that transcoding is going through the proper routes, that it's not using the CPU, that it's using either a dedicated GPU or an iGPU on said CPU. And being able to monitor all that information here is really, really handy. I really do like it. Very handy tool. I feel like this plugin is a must-have for anybody that does use a GPU, whether it is an integrated GPU or a dedicated GPU for any kind of purposes, whether it's transcoding, whether it is rendering, all that kind of stuff. Having that information available to you at the tip of your fingers is super, super handy. Now, next up is going to be dependent on what kind of GPU you have in your system, whether it is an Intel, an AMD, or an NVIDIA GPU. But having one of the specific GPU plugins that allow you to put the top, so the Intel GPU top, NVIDIA GPU top, AMD GPU top, anything like that, makes it really easy for any of your Docker applications to communicate with your GPU and do what they need to. This solved a bunch of my issues with Jellyfin, and I really do think that these kinds of plugins are extremely handy. Having something that helps pass through that GPU connection to all of your Docker apps is great, and I do think that this one is a must-have for sure. Now, the next plugin is extremely handy for managing your cache. It helps move data off the cache when they're no longer needed, to avoid your cache running into bottlenecks when transferring large files or what have you, and it's called Mover Tuning. It is a very, very handy tool. If we jump into the settings for it, we can see that we have a bunch of information here and the ability to customize it. I have it set to run daily at about 3:40 in the morning, at a time where I'm typically not using my server whatsoever. I have it set so that it's going to do, when the cache is at 60%, it'll help move all that kind of stuff over. You can set all these things to whatever you want. I did change a bunch of the defaults, but this tool really does help me manage my cache drive, make sure that everything is looking good, and it makes sure that it's not doing it during a parity drive. So if it's during a parity, it will go ahead and hold off until the parity check is done, and then it'll go ahead and run the mover. So super handy. I really do like having an automated mover. You can do a lot of this kind of stuff manually, but having it automatic, having it set for particular percentages of use for thresholds is very, very handy. And again, I think this is a must-have. Now, a plugin that I've talked about on stream with someone quite a few times is called NUT, and that is the Network UPS Tools plugin. And what this does is it allows my server and my UPS to talk to one another, so that if the power goes out and the battery level on my UPS gets to a certain level, it'll go ahead and send a shutdown command to my server so that it can safely shut down before the battery depletes, and makes sure that the server isn't getting shut down unexpectedly and in a hard way where it can cause issues, during an update, during any kind of stuff like that. It is an extremely handy tool. If we go ahead and go to my dashboard, we can see that it is communicating right now. My battery's at 100%. It's currently using 215 watts. The nominal power, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of really great information here. You can set a whole bunch of ways for it to perform and to act based on certain situations. So for example, here, it will have battery runtime left to initiate shutdown. So when there's 240 minutes left of battery, it's going to go ahead and send that message to my Unraid server, it's going to send the shutdown command. It's going to slowly and safely shut down the server. So I have this set up. You can change all these settings quite a bit, but you do need it to be set to know the actual service before you can change a lot of these settings, because those get activated and locked out when the service is active. So keep that in mind. But again, another really useful tool, especially if you're using a UPS that has a USB connection that allows the server and the UPS to communicate with one another. Now, I've done a video in the past talking about how to access your Docker apps externally when you're not within your own personal network. So when you're out and about using Cloudflare, and that one is my favorite way to use it, but sometimes that is not the best way. Not everybody owns a domain that they can go ahead and use that for. So something like Tailscale is a really great one, and I do have Tailscale as a plugin enabled on my server because I do use it from time to time, and it is great. A lot of things are not meant to be used over Cloudflare. So for example, Jellyfin and Plex are not allowed to be used over the Cloudflare service for the tunnel. So Tailscale is the only way that I can go ahead and share my Jellyfin, for example, externally over, outside of my network if I want to do that. So this is the way that I access my Jellyfin when I'm not home. And Tailscale is a really great way. It's basically creating your own tunnel from whatever device you're using into your local network in order to access things. And using the plugin specifically allows for a lot of really great control. Certain Docker applications can immediately and directly use the Tailscale plugin to access that. And for example, here, my audio bookshelf, I can go ahead and toggle it to use Tailscale so that I can easily access it from outside the network, stuff like that. It's extremely handy. It's a really great app. And if you don't own a domain or you want to do things that Cloudflare does not allow through their tunnel service, Tailscale is really great. I personally don't use it for everything because I'm relying on a company that is, funded by venture capitalism, and I don't want to rely on a company like that for access to my stuff. I don't want to build everything around it and then have that kind of service taken away from me. So I try to use my own self-hosted stuff for as much as I can, and then just use Tailscale for the things that I can't use that self-hosted method for. So again, I do think it is a very handy tool, and I think it's a must-have on an Unraid server. So the next plugin is called Unassigned Devices, and what this allows us to do is it allows us to mount and share non-array disks. So if you want to plug in a USB and transfer stuff from your server directly to that USB, or from that USB directly to your server, or just to have a USB plugged in, like an external hard drive or something that you want to use, and you don't care about it being part of the array so that it's backed up and all that kind of stuff, Unassigned Devices allows you that flexibility, which is really great. And then you can also get Unassigned Devices Plus, which gives you more support in terms of HFS Plus, exFAT, and a bunch of different formats to make sure that you can just basically plug in anything and have access to it. This tool is fantastic. I've used this many times in the past when plugging in some of my external drives. I've thought about kind of just moving all my external drives to the server. They're not backed up properly anyways. The important data that's on them is backed up, but the whole drives themselves aren't backed up, but they're all just sitting on my desk and they take up a lot of space. Might be easier for me to just plug them into the server and have them accessible from any of the PCs instead of having to use Windows share stuff, which is a pain in the butt. Unassigned Devices is great. If you do have a lot of stuff that you plan on plugging in, any external drives, USBs and stuff, definitely a must-have plugin. And the final plugin is going to be user scripts. And user scripts allows you to just really quickly run scripts. It's most commonly used for a lot of people to do backups and stuff like that, but it can be used for so many more. And getting the user scripts enhanced is fantastic because it gives you a bunch of UI customization and toggleable elements and a whole bunch of other great stuff. Having these two things together is really, really good. They work really, really well together. And if you plan on using any kind of scripts and stuff, this is just a much simpler way of doing that within Unraid. Definitely a must-have. I don't think I've ever seen anybody not have user scripts installed on their Unraid, and then just having the enhanced version just really does bring that up to the next level. So definitely a must-have. And that's it. That's 15 plugins that I think are must-haves on Unraid. I use a majority of these basically every single day, if not on a relatively regular basis. I really do like all these plugins. I've kind of learned about a lot of them over time. A lot of these I've had almost since the get-go, and some of them I've just kind of installed as I've heard about them. and they're just all really great tools. But I am curious, is there anything that I'm missing from my list that you guys have on your must-have plugins list? Let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know if there's any plugins here that you know of better alternatives. Let me know if there's any plugins here that you're planning on installing based on me recommending them. I'd love to know all about that down in the comment section below. Really do enjoy talking to people about Unraid, how everybody's using it in different ways, and talking about it down in the comment section or on the Discord are really great ways to do that. So really do look forward to seeing your responses. But with all that said, I really do hope you found this video helpful. And if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it. If you like, subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can also leave those down in the comment section below, and I'll try to get to them all as quickly as I can. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, and big thanks to you for watching to the end of this video. If you do want to see any other videos relating to Unraid and all the kind of stuff that I do on it, you can go ahead and check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.